Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound, a living archive for Nordic music. Today, I am joined once again by Nils Edström, the man behind Hindarfjäll, perhaps best known for his performance of My Mother Told Me with Peter Franzén from the Vikings television series. I've had Nils on before, but now he is back to talk about his latest album, Seden, which released almost a month ago to the day. Nils, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you are calling in from Italy, correct?
Yes, correct.
From Rome?
From Rome, from the Eternal City. Yes.
Is that a vacation for you, or do you find it more of like a creative pilgrimage? What is your purpose for going all the way down
Yeah,
there?
exactly. No, the thing is, my girlfriend is from here, so we're
Oh,
here pretty often. Yeah.
so more basic
Yeah,
idea than some sort of creative pilgrimage.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because actually, there is an idea with Nordic musicians in particular, maybe other arts too, where a lot of I'm especially thinking of artists from the 1800s who always would make frequent trips to Rome and Italy because they thought it was necessary for their creative energy. So I was
Oh, really?
wondering if there was any overlap there or anything like that. But it's a very old habit for Scandinavians to take summer trips to Rome.
Oh, yeah. No, the thing is, most of the lyrics from the new album is
Mhm.
actually written. Because we've been here quite a lot recently. So,
All
so it's
right.
it's more like of a natural cause, but yeah, but I guess you get a lot of inspiration here, in it's the nature is beautiful in Lazio,
Mhm.
and the city is amazing. It's just amazing. It's
Yeah. I hope I can go someday, but it's not exactly an easy jump from Scandinavia to Italy for me. Like, a lot of Americans think Europe is a lot smaller than it is. I don't know
yeah,
if you've ever talked to an American and you say, "Oh, I'm from Sweden." They're like, "I have a friend in Sweden. Maybe you know them." Yeah. So it's not exactly as easy as, "Well, I'm in Norway. I'll just pop over to Italy." But yeah, I would love to go someday.
yeah, it's amazing. You should. It's a lot of Americans here actually. A lot of
Oh
Americans.
yeah,
Yeah.
very popular place for Americans. It's like Florida without all the swamps in a way.
Yeah.
All right, so man, we were actually just talking before we hit the record button that we did not get to run into each other at Midgardsblot, but that is probably fresh on a lot of people's minds who are watching or listening right now. And I know that you were a fan favorite at Midgardsblot, so I just sort of wanted to follow up on you to see, what was that whole experience like being back at Midgardsblot?
It's great. It's great. Just as like usual, the environment, the people, yeah, it's something about Midgardsblot for sure.
Oh yeah,
And this time, we had a better time. Like
okay.
uh,
I noticed you were more confident. Like everyone
yeah,
seemed more
yeah.
confident and comfortable.
Yeah, because the last time we played, that was 2022. Yeah, we had a like complete new constellation of people, some
Mhm.
old, some new, and we started practicing and rehearsing. And this time, it was the first time we used in-ears,
Mhm.
so that made a huge difference. So yeah, it's
If I remember correctly, last year you also had, or not last year, but the last time you played there, you also had one of those middle of the day slots where the sun was just right in your eyes the whole time.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. I had a great tan after
yeah,
that.
exactly, exactly. Just like your time in Italy, right? You guys are always getting nice and tan. So,
Exactly.
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people want to hear, what is it like performing with Peter Franzén? He's a heartthrob. People love him, and you get to do music with him. Yeah, I'm just sure people want to hear some comments from you on that.
Yeah, no, the thing is, I remember I met Peter first time in the Greenfrost tent,
Mhm.
and we were like, "Oh, hey man, how are you?" It's so strange because, as Peter said, it feels like we know each other, but we never met. We've just like said some words to each other through social medias and stuff, and
Mhm.
regarding the song. But it was a great experience. And the thing is, when you think about actors in general, maybe it's especially like Hollywood actors, maybe, and
Mhm.
you think like you it's you have an idea.
Yep.
And but he was amazing. It was great. So
Mhm.
kind, it was really amazing. And to be able to stand there next to him on stage with all these people, it's yeah, it's phenomenal, really
Yeah,
phenomenal.
had to have been super cool, man. I mean, like people. I mean, I love him. He's a great actor and all of that. And if I can say it for you, it's not often that you find an actor that can hold a tune very well. So that has to have been a really nice time to actually be able to play with an actor who has the musical ability within them, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and then
No,
the elephant in the room is what was it like taking Golta's spot on the program? Was there any pressure for you behind that at all?
of course, of course. The thing is, we were because we came there the day before on the Wednesday. So me and some other guys, and I got a call from out of it from Grimfrost. He said, "Oh yeah, you have to come backstage. It's you're gonna I don't know if he said co-headline." I was like, "Oh okay." Then I was standing there with the phone. I have to go, guys. And then so I went backstage, and so he was sitting there with Runa and Peter, and it was after the Amon concert. So the
Mhm.
guys were there as well, and they said that oh you're gonna change time because Gåte canceled and stuff. And for me, I was like sitting there and oh, what does this mean? Okay, so yeah, and yeah, it was yeah, that's a bit of pressure, you know.
Because I overheard people who didn't get the memo that Golta canceled, um, who were walking up to the stage while you guys were starting, and I heard people say things similar to, "I've never heard this Golta song before," or "Hey, Gunhild's looking a little different these days," and there were a lot of people walking up who were expecting to see Golta, but instead you guys were there, and that's when I was thinking that there was a little bit of pressure that you guys would have a big Golta crowd that's like, "This isn't Golta." Yeah, but you guys did great. Everyone loved you. It was a great time.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess the main reason I have you here today is to talk about Seden. But before we do, it has been almost 2 years since I had you on the channel, and I have quite a few new listeners who might have not heard that one. So without actually retracing too many steps, I would love to just retrace a single question, and that is, what are you doing in this genre of music, right? Like, how did you get into this medieval pagan folk style thing? I would love to hear or rehear sort of how you got into all of this.
Yeah, okay. So I think it all started in eighth grade. Maybe I was like 13, 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, I was more into, 80s hard rock music. So like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, and this that was the thing.
Yeah.
And and then I met a dear friend of mine in eighth grade, and he showed me black metal.
Okay.
Uh, and the thing is, I was like, because we wanted to create a band. I had a band ish before, but we played more like classic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but he was like, no way, because once you go black metal, there's no
Yeah, exactly.
so I really had to adapt basically. So I started listening to some songs. It was Immortal, Dimmu Borgir, Dissection,
Mm-hmm.
Wind. And so one of the bands that I really found to be like my kind of taste was Wind.
Okay.
Wind. Um, so Journey to the End. I don't know if you heard about Wind.
Yep.
So it was, but the thing is, in the beginning, I could just hear, the intro because I felt that wow, this melody is amazing. And then when he started screaming, I was like, "Doop," pause, and and then so that's where it all started. And then I went to yeah, Dissection because that what's that album called? Rain Chaos, right? Rain.
I'm not
What's
as
it called?
familiar with dissection, so I'll take your name for it. Be sure people
Ah,
will correct you in the comments. But
yeah, because
yeah.
I'm not true black metal, and I don't care. It's not my type of. But anyways, and I think it was Mahakali that got me
Mhm.
into it because that had that kind of more like classical rock riff and so eventually you start getting used to the screaming, the growling, you know, and that's where it all started. So we formed this black metal band.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, you know, you started reading a lot about, you know, the lyrics, black metal lyrics, what it's about. Okay. And then it got pretty dark,
Yep.
you know, but I've always had a fascination for, you know, nature, forest, like the
Hmm.
kind of things. So, yeah, so it all went from there basically. Eventually I found out, you know, that the whole Norse thing came
Hmm.
to me pretty naturally after that. But yeah, and the thing is we started actually to, you know, had a lot of our classmates thought that we were absolutely crazy. Absolutely. I will never forget when one of them said, but Nils, what are you doing in the forest? Because we went to the forest during breaks, always,
Hmm.
always. Um, but are you smoking something, man? What? And I said, no, no, we're just walking. And he couldn't understand that. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, so we were like while walking in the forest, we were discussing you know, lyrics, and we were starting to like form our own kind of philosophy
Hmm.
away that didn't exist basically. It was just like, yeah, okay, the trees, they must have souls, man. Yeah, you know, that kind of stuff. That
Which
kind of
was
stuff.
not helping the smoking accusations, right?
Exactly.
Like,
I didn't. I excluded that part. I didn't tell him that. But so eventually, so from there, I think we yeah, we had a thing going with the band, and eventually I found out. But you know, starting reading more about the Norse mythology, the Norse
mhm,
beliefs, I was like, okay, but it's like this is the thing we're talking about. We're just making different words.
mhm,
Yeah. So yeah, from there. So this was, I think, 2012,
mhm,
and up to 2015, in the beginning of 2015, very late 2014, I felt the need to start something. But because in the meantime, as you know, I started listening to Vindir and Dissection, all this. Vardruna came along.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and because the thing is, I wanted to find music that was suitable for my daily forest walks with.
Yeah.
Uh, but actually, maybe we talked about this last time. The
Mhm,
first song that got me like, wow, this is the thing. It's a song called Stenristarna
mhm.
by Anders Hagberg.
Okay.
I later found out that our one of our teacher at that time, it was his old colleague,
Okay.
Anders. Yeah. So but so there was that song. I was like, that went on repeat for so many months. You know, it's still until this very day. You know, and yeah, and then after that, you know, came Vardruna. Then I found out about Monogarm and
Mhm.
their acoustic stuff. So yeah, that was the way, like how
Yeah.
it all.
So you were sort of looking for a different way to express these sorts of, philosophies and ideas that you were having musically that wasn't exactly black metal. Uh, and
Exactly.
and so along came Vardruna and all of these other musicians making this music and sort of opened you up to a whole new world of this medievally Viking pagan music thing.
Absolutely, and the thing is that since I was a child, I've been, you know, it's there have been classmates before, but then we're talking about like second grade, third grade, you know, when you're like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the thing about the forest? You know, since I was, you know, and thanks to my grandmother that you know, we were always, you know, walking around in the forest. She was teaching me about the name of the trees and speaking about all these, you know, vast and like nature spirits and stuff.
Hmm.
And so I've always felt a very strong connection with, you know, nature.
I
Um,
have to say that was that that is one of my favorite parts of our conversation last time, was you telling this very wholesome story of your, your talks with your grandmother and all this sort of stuff. It sort of, at least to me, adds a layer to the way that you perform. My mother told me, like, it gives a little bit more background to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but whenever I heard that story, I was like, oh, now I have a little bit more to put with that song when I listen to it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I think from there, I'd be curious to hear, though, because I would say that Nordic animism, which is the word that we now have given this stuff, has now reached a massive amount of people. Of course, thanks to Runa, the guy that does the project called Nordic Animism, but also because of the musicians who were just communicating these ideas either explicitly or implicitly through their music and the pictures they use, the song titles, and all of that. As
Yeah.
someone who's sort of been into this since they were in school, and back in the day when people were judging you for just smoking in the woods and being crazy, how does it do you feel a little vindicated or a little like you won when you see sort of how popular all of these Nordic animism things are? Like, what is your take on that as someone who grew up with it?
Um, when I look back, because around 2015, the when all of the songs from the first album was written. Today, when I read them today, it's like I feel they are a bit dark, and I feel that it's very far away from what I stand for now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which, while reflecting, I think it's a good thing. To of course it depends. If it's like fundamentally different, then maybe you did something off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same. It's still in the same area basically,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different. So back then it was a lot of dark thoughts. It wasn't so rooted
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of stuff. It was more like, yeah, I like nature and fuck monetism. That's
Yeah.
it, you know. So it was extremely influenced by the whole black metal
Mm-hmm.
idea of
Yep.
things. But the thing is, back in 2020, 2019 maybe, when I had to re-record everything because I wasn't pleased with the old demos and stuff.
I know the
Uh,
feeling.
yeah,
Soul crushing.
yeah. And I felt like I don't want to change too much. It's already been written. I changed some bits, like, but very, very like
Mm-hmm.
few things. Because I felt like, yeah, they're already written. Like, let it go. It has to be there for my own sake.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
So you see sort of like this growth from this very dark, heavy, intense talking of these sort of subjects into now it seems like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but at least from my point of view, it seems like things are getting a little less I'll use your word dark or grave, and things are maybe turning towards maybe something a little bit more positive, or I don't know, maybe celebratory of these sorts of ideas in nature. Even if I listen to other bands, right, I also hear sort of maybe not as dark as they were 10 years ago, something a little bit more optimistic sounding, if I can say it like that. I definitely hear the optimism in your newest album. So I hear that growth happening too. And I think it's because over time, as this genre becomes its own thing, it's shedding more and more of the black metal parts of it that it came from. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Because the thing is, of course, I put some, mythology aspects into it.
Mm-hmm.
More like, maybe a bit more like this folklore sound-ish thing. But in the, like, if you dissect it, it's more of a yeah, some kind of like angry, chaotic atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
really. And just, I think we talked about this the last time a bit, but like the first song I ever made with Hindarfjäll was called Så som träden viskar hans namn.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like, what do we have here? Håvamål, what is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you are not grounded, when you're not rooted in these things, it's like, you know, Odin seems to be a big thing in this whole thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So today I look back at, you know, particularly that song, I feel
Mhm.
like, yeah. But interestingly enough, I the whole song ends up with me screaming, "How can you trust his promises?"
Mhm.
Uh, you know, so I did something right without knowing it.
It's great when
But
that works out that way.
yeah, yeah, right, right. So yeah, yeah.
So I think the only last question I have for you in terms of how you came to this sort of sound that you have with Hindarfjäll, that has actually become more obvious with Seden to me, is, you know, the people who have been listening to this podcast for a while will be very familiar with the idea that there's this old kind of pagan folk music and there's a new kind of pagan folk music. And the new kind, you know, very much comes from, you know, Vardruna, Heilung, that sort of thing. But there's this older style that has a lot more Celtic influence in it. That
Mm.
comes from like Faun. They were huge in like that old school style of medieval music. And so I think for you, maybe this would even be a good segue into talking about Seden. I hear you using more upbeat rhythms. You even have a flute or a tin whistle or a recorder, whatever wind instrument that is, and a strummed guitar, which I've always loved that you use because it's very unique to Hindarfjell in a lot of ways. Where did you sort of get that, maybe that sound from? Because yeah, Vardruna sometimes uses the flute, but it's not often. They're just parts of your sound that sound to me like early 2000s like Celtic pagan music. So if you can say anything on that, I'd love to hear it.
Um, the thing is, when I started Hindarfjäll, I felt like, okay, I don't want to have anything to do with the old instruments at all. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to have, like, you know, proper acoustic guitar, because the thing is, I'm not from the start, I'm not a singer.
Yeah.
I'm a guitar. So for me it was like uh obvious I needed a guitar. That was like um and then I felt like, okay, and you know, you need a drum, flute could be nice. Uh so I really wanted it to be as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And back then I've never been a pro, you know, with recordings and you know, production
Yeah.
overall. So I just found some samples on Logic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the DAW, and felt, okay, this will be enough. Uh, but then eventually I started thinking maybe could be cool to add like a Kravik lyre, right?
Mm-hmm.
And tagelharpa, why not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it basically went from there. Thing is, I'm familiar with Faun, but I can't say that I've ever heard like a whole song,
Yeah.
really. I've just heard parts
Mm-hmm.
of the music. But so everything, I don't know. I guess it's a mashup between, you know, um, first of all, like Stenristarna once
Yeah.
again,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, monogram acoustic stuff with
Mm-hmm.
Vardruna, and you know, and all. I think that we have something in Sweden like pretty unconsciously, because
Mm-hmm.
we grew up with uh children's, you know, these old programs like TV
Mm-hmm.
shows and movies that was very inspired by like folklore,
Mm-hmm.
and this like folk music, Swedish folk music.
Mm-hmm.
uh so I guess it's like, because if you ask me, can you give me some Swedish folk music, I'm like, no, sorry. The thing is, I have it in my head, but I can't, like, of course I can name a few, but I have more like melodies and a kind of sound in my head when I speak about Swedish folk music.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's become like a mashup between all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I wanted to move closer to that unconscious part, like the Swedish folk music. And I think you can hear in some songs of the new album that it's yeah, going towards that. I think.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the increased presence of the nyckelharpa, which I have loved. It's one of my favorite parts, and it's not only that you're just using it for its sound. There's also a lot of like the harmonies and the tonalities of Swedish folk music that sort of comes through in that.
Absolutely.
That makes sense even if you just grow up in Sweden, even if you're not a folk musician. Same
Mm.
thing here in the United States is anyone who grows up here knows the blues. Like we just know it because we grow up with that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's very similar in Sweden. And Nils, I was wondering, would you allow me to ambush you with a question that I did not prepare you with? Um,
Go ahead.
because you just got my gears turning with this friction that keeps coming up in Nordic music. And please feel free to speak your mind, or we can just skip the question. I'll just, um, how do you feel if people call Hindarfjäll folk music?
Really good question. I've had this discussion with quite a few people.
It's not
So
easy, but I think it's a,
no, it's
it's a big question. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
yeah, yeah, and the thing is, it varies depending on who you ask, what age, you know, and stuff. The thing is, I have a close friend, and he's closer to like 8 years old, and the thing is, that's not folk music. It's rock music. I was like, rock music. Excuse me. So it depends, but I think yeah, that it's a really difficult like when people ask that's not familiar with the genre at all, and they
Hmm.
ask like, oh, so what kind of like for example, my girlfriend's parents,
Hmm.
from Rome, and they have no clue whatsoever
Hmm.
about anything about the music, and then so I just have to like the easiest way is to say, yeah, it's Viking inspired,
Hmm.
but the music has nothing to do with the Viking age music and
Hmm.
stuff. But I'm just speaking for myself and
Hmm.
nothing. So I think, yeah, exactly. It's because when we say Swedish folk music in Sweden, people think about the violin,
Hmm.
that very happy, very fast,
Hmm.
and it's pretty far away from the thing is, of course, we have like these dark melodies as
Hmm.
well. But when we speak about the Swedish folk music, it's generally people think about this happy, um, you know,
Yeah,
fa-
polskas, hambo dances, everyone dancing in the circles around the
exactly,
barns. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So I think that it's Nordic folk music is pretty fitting, or
Hmm.
Scandinavian folk music. But yeah, it's um, it's difficult to,
It
to
is it is very difficult. So I think like are you comfortable with it? Like if someone says, "Oh, I love Hindarfjell," they play Nordic folk music.
Yeah, I am
Cool.
absolutely. The thing is, but when people start saying, Viking music, then no,
Yeah.
then they lose me. Or yeah, so Nordic folk music,
Hmm.
Scandinavian music. I think the thing is the most. I don't know. The thing is, I believe that speaking of Hindarfjäll,
Hmm.
um, I think it's a mashup between I guess you could say Swedish folk or Nordic folk mashup between like cinematic elements,
Hmm.
like because sometimes the thing is I've always been in love with film music, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I was actually thinking about it um I think some weeks ago, and the first like memory of hearing film music was of course the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so when thinking about that, I can now hear some parts like of Hindarfjäll and some, that kind of energy,
Hmm.
um, like the big choirs that like, so it's really, yeah, Swedish, Scandinavian, Nordic folk, mashed with film. Basically, it's not, but I don't know. It's difficult to come up with a proper name for it.
Yeah, because
For it.
people know my stance. But it's my important thing to me is sort of to collect, the opinions of others. because no one's having the conversation. Everyone talks about it behind closed doors or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to hear from musicians, right? And sort of like, hopefully over time, I will collect this spectrum of opinions and spectrum of stances, right? For
Yeah.
any who feel comfortable enough sharing them. So I do really appreciate you, especially because just as we just said, it's not easy. It's very complicated. So I appreciate you trying to tackle a complicated question broadcasted in public. I do appreciate that. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Seden, because I think I love that you just brought up soundtracks, because there are two words that I associate Seden with. Ambitious. It's over an hour long. That is ambitious, but it's also just like, it's different from like an hour long dungeon synth album where it's like the same looped harpsichord thing for, I love dungeon synth, but it's very different to have, right, an hour long folk album, right?
Yeah.
But it's also very dynamic. So in that way, you share two adjectives with soundtracks. It is both ambitious and it's dynamic. And so I guess it's definitely way bigger in scope, at least in my opinion, to your previous album. So I think the first question I want to start with this is, compared to Lerradsgrena, what did you think of doing differently, if anything, or if there was like a conscientious, like, okay, I did that with this album, what do I want to do differently now with this album compared to the last one?
That's a very good question. I think I didn't really have anything particular in mind. The Seden, the song,
Mm-hmm.
was written, I think it was like 1 month after
Mm-hmm.
Läraradsgren.
Okay.
Back then, the thing is, I started experimenting with different synthesizers, because I finally understood that, okay, it's something, I do something wrong. Because I felt like something is a bit thin
Mm-hmm.
in the sound, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I have to um, put some extra effort into making the whole, like, the ground
Mm-hmm.
with synthesizers and stuff. So I start to look into that. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, I don't know, yeah, like you said, with the dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
I start to understand that, because the first album and the second album, it's a lot of constant, big choirs.
Yeah.
And I think it's rooted in me saying to myself, no, you're not a singer. You play guitar and you make music. So, but you can save yourself by doing a lot of choirs. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And the thing is, it's not only that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's also, um it comes back to the film music, the score music. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've always been drawn to this big, majestic
Mm-hmm.
things, like in music. And but then I figured out to make it more like, um even more majestic. I need to add some other elements to it. It
Mm-hmm.
cannot be majestic all the time, because then it just disappears into a blur, right? So yeah, so that's also one of the things. And then, and of course, the nyckelharpa, as you mentioned. I found this guy Tobias. Um, I'm extremely happy for that, because the thing is, I've been looking for many years,
Mm-hmm.
writing in groups, in Gothenburg,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a guy that plays nyckelharpa. So when he wrote, I was like, we're gonna grab a beer right now. And so we did. And yeah, so I'm really happy. But that really added an great element.
He's a great addition. I loved
Yeah.
seeing that up on the stage. I was like, a nickel harper. I don't remember that last
Yeah,
time. Maybe it was just my memory, if you did or whatever. But something about it, I was like, hey, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Totally new, totally new. Yeah, and of course, uh, that's one aspect of it. And then lyrically, it's a huge change as well, I
Mhm.
think. And especially if you think about the first album, to the second and to the third. Like I was speaking about, the first album is not really based in anything more than just this nature, you know, like the belief in nature, the belief in the belief in trees, and you know,
Mhm.
the spiritual, uh you know, the standard things,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to
Yeah,
put it.
because then it's like yeah, but then with Lärarets grenar, I started to um I think it was already in 2018 I started to realize that, oh shit, this is so much more than just, you know, this little thing I found, because
Mhm.
I was really, it was all about, as I said, nature, walking around, and you know, and criticizing uh monotheism, you know.
Mhm.
uh
Yep.
and so yeah, so I felt I got more rooted in 2018, and then I started writing lyrics. So I think that Lärarets grenar is a, it's a good start for it, like it had its purpose.
Mhm.
It lifted up Seden pretty nicely. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Because what I'm noticing here is a trend of you being very self-aware, or at least being very willing to reflect on what you could do better. Um,
Yeah,
that's not as common of a trait in musicians as we would expect, right? And I think that is what directly leads to this very noticeable growth and development between albums that I hear in you and the other few bands as well. That you can tell there's a level of self criticism that's a healthy amount. Um, like you immediately saying how you listen to it, you're like, okay, I'm bad at this. I need to get better at this, right? And while your standard for you're bad at it is still better than most, and that's why the albums are great, what's important is that to you, there was something missing, right? And you
absolutely.
took the time to fix it because you wanted to be better at it. That's a very
Yeah,
important lesson there for musicians.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the other thing that stands out to me about your sound is your use of choirs, as we've talked about. But what in Seden, it's not so much a grand majestic choir as it is like just when I saw you guys performing on stage, right? Is just a few voices singing together.
Yeah.
Your use of harmony in your music is one of my favorite things about Hindarfjäll. I feel like I cannot really get harmonies like that anywhere else except for maybe the band Savulo. I see a lot of similarities between you two, but you do very different things. So where did you sort of learn to arrange harmonies like that? Are you entirely self-taught? Did you take any music lessons or anything?
um the thing is, we most of the guys on
Mm-hmm.
stage, the band, we known each other since high school.
Oh yeah,
uh,
awesome.
yeah, and so we studied music.
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, of course, we learned, you know, theory and stuff. It's pretty funny because one of the guys, he tells me all the time that, you know, oh fuck that shit, man, because you know, the things we learned there, you know, it destroyed everything for me. I can't write music anymore, because he was really from the start, you know, he didn't want to know anything. He just wanted to go with feeling, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
like he didn't want to have rules, which is pretty interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but when it comes to arrangement and stuff with the choirs, uh, I I have usually I have a melody, and then I just add layers to that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, yeah, I guess um I have a more I have more knowledge
Mm-hmm.
about it now than I had before. So some like the first album, then it was like, okay, add this, and okay, that's pretty cool, and then we go with that. So, but it's still pretty similar, the method. But of course, I'm thinking about, like, yeah, maybe some theory sometimes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
What is your? It's funny. I just keep throwing complicated discussions at you,
Oh, go.
because I have the same. I come from bluegrass. Like I come from that is what I play, like American folk music. but I also have a music degree, which means that I had to take theory. And then I kept going back to music school. So I have all of this like, professional training in how in music theory and all that. And I had a very similar response when I was growing up. Is like all of a sudden when I learned all of this theory, I felt like it did put a lot of rules on me, and all of a sudden it ruined everything for me. I would use that word. Is all of a sudden I was like, everything I write is garbage. Nothing works. Everything sucks. But then I look back on it, and you sort of learn the rules so you can break them, or at least so it can give you some kind of guidance. Because I had a very good friend that I played music with. He was the same way as your friend. That's why I laughed. Where he's like, "Don't teach me a lick of theory. I don't want to know any of it. Pure intuition." And I think the best of both worlds is when those two people make music together.
Yes,
Has
yes,
that been your experience?
absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing is, the guy that said these things, that was the guy that introduced me to black metal. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But since 2022, is the guy that play the log, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Adrian and
He plays the. I've never heard anyone actually say that out loud. Oh, he plays the log. Like anyone who hasn't seen you guys doesn't know what you're talking about, but I have the visual to it. Yeah.
it sounds even more horrible in Swedish. People look at us like, what the, you know. So, yeah, yeah.
All right, yeah, that's cool. So you see that there's a benefit to like blending, not being entirely confined by rules, which all the rules that we learned are for classical music, right? And we just sort of like we need know when and where to apply them. They help.
Yeah.
But I definitely hear that in your music. So what was your main inspiration for Seden? Um, Maybe you could talk about anything from like where the name of the album comes from. I know you had a beautiful write up about it when you announced the album. So you can go anywhere with this, from just talking about the name of the album to just your inspiration, anything that you want to talk about, like where Seden came from, like creatively.
Yes. So if we start lyrically, if we go back to 2018, the thing is was that I met a group of people that was much older than me. And so, we started hanging out, we had some beers, and so we started speaking about all these things. And there I was sitting, but so they started asking me questions like, oh yeah, but I love nature, man. That was the
Yeah.
thing. Even though I've always read a lot, it was not so profound as these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all started there, and I got so inspired and so influenced, so I really started digging into it much more, much deeper,
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things, which also like lit like Lärads grenar,
Mm-hmm.
with by saying, I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but Lärad instead of Yggdrasil,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and that kind of stuff. But then I found out pretty quick that people tend to use the term asatro, and
Mm-hmm.
including me back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I thought that was the thing. That was, that's what they called it. And so I figured out that that was not the case at all. That was like a Danish pastor, like came up with that in the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
So like probably because he couldn't understand the term of
Mm-hmm.
the true way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Seden, which means it's Seder in Old Norse.
Mm-hmm.
What was like yeah, a way of life, comprehensive philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like everything you did was according to Seden.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's we're going back to what you said there with it's 13 tracks and it's quite 1 hour, and I felt even like shit. Am I really gonna do this? And then and I felt like no, this is missing. I need to add this song. So I think from the beginning it was less songs, but I felt like no, this needs to be more Yeah. So basically, yeah. So it's based around Seden, Sidr,
Hmm.
the Norse way or the Nordic way, which is, the thing is, it's 13 tracks. It's not enough,
Yeah.
really, right? So I felt like, okay, maybe I should have chosen another name, but yeah. I'm really trying to, um, uh, you know, speak about um, different aspects surrounding life, death, specifically more like the ritual aspects
Hmm.
of the Sidr, which is like, we have the um, I don't know what song we should pick, but but it's like, anyways, it's like most of the songs are about this ritual interplay between like divinities, people, nature spirits. That it's all like in a balance. It
Hmm.
forms a balance together, and so yeah, um, yeah.
I find it interesting how you were using Sather differently from how it's typically used,
Mm,
where it can sometimes be oversimplified in the
mm,
ways that this community, this music scene, sort of treats it. Right.
yeah.
Um, Simplify it to just the beating on the drum, casting spells, doing the spirit flight type stuff.
Oh wait, maybe we're talking about different
Oh,
things
two different
here.
things then.
Yes.
I had always thought that they were just different dialectical spellings, but they're
No, no.
two entirely different things.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ah, okay, that makes more sense because I was sitting here like he's going deeper into this than most people do. But it was like that's
No.
because it's an entirely different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. You think about the Seder.
Say that, yeah. So I assumed it was a dialectic thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I will keep
That's
this up
also
because I like to
extremely
stay humble.
no, no, but actually that's we say in Swedish we say Seid
Okay.
or Seden,
Hmm.
Seder.
Hmm.
That's also a pretty interesting subject actually.
Yeah, definitely.
With the drumming and with like the whole magical thing, and yeah, sorry, now I interrupted you.
No, no, you needed to because I was asking a question that didn't make any sense because I thought they were the same thing. So thank you for interrupting me. So now we don't have to waste time with that question that makes no sense. So then
Oh,
I guess oh no no, you can go.
no, but I think it's pretty interesting because it's like 20 years ago,
Hmm.
there were not a lot of like academical text really treating Seden or Sidr, or some people, they say Fornsidr,
Hmm.
and it's really Fornsed, right? So, but the thing is, it became Fornsidr when the new way entered in Scandinavia.
Yep.
So I don't think it makes it right to use. Of course, you should be able to use it, but
Yeah.
I don't think uh, it's suitable because that's. I think in a way you are implying that it's fine. We are the old ways,
Hmm.
right? So
Sure.
I'm not really into either like Asatru or
Hmm.
uh, Fornsidr.
Hmm.
I prefer Cedar or Seda. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, you bring up a very good point. This is actually something that the academics actually talk about a whole bunch, especially the ones that I would say the best way that I would put it is that not only are there more academics doing this sort of stuff, but there are more academics doing it that aren't also actively judging it. Like there are a whole bunch of dorks out there that are now studying and writing about this stuff who don't actively despise it, where they might actually be into it themselves. And I think a benefit of that is you might have just brought up like a conflict between what's called reconstructionists, which are the people who were trying to make things exactly as they were, which is never really possible to do, versus the people who were just trying to make something new with parts that we have, like we're playing with Legos trying to put these things back together. Um, yeah, so I thank you for sharing that perspective, because when you put this album into that context, that conversation, you are sort of engaging with that reconstruction versus creating something new. Might be a more clumsy way to put it. But yeah,
No,
do you have
that's
anything left to say on it?
it's a good way to put it. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the same way with lärodsgrenar, like lärods branches. I think we had a gig some months ago, but it was before Midgardsblot. And there was a guy came up to one of the guys in the tent, where they sold merch and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, but what do you guys mean with lärod? Unfortunately, it was a close friend of mine who doesn't give a shit about these things. So he was like, I don't know, ask Nils. So, but it's interesting because that's the questions I want, because the thing is, and it's the same with Seden. I want the discussions. I want dialogues. I want people to speak with each other, and the whole exchanging ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with Lärod, I'm trying to sow something new, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the whole Yggdrasil thing is it's pretty interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because Yggdrasil, if you take a look at what does it actually mean, it's like it's not a good name. It's not a suitable name for a world tree.
Yep. It's just, I mean, like,
And
so just right off the top of my head, I like the horse of Odin, or the steed of Ig. The
yeah,
specific.
exactly. And
Yep.
yeah, and then Ig, which like his name, one of his names, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That he that means the horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can discuss. Yeah, I think you're close to, like, saying like the horse drasil, or some people believe it has more to do with like something like I don't know what it's called in English, like plowing, right?
Okay.
Plowing.
Okay.
Uh,
Cool.
but yeah, it's something with like transport of some way,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a whole it's a pretty complex subject, but also and there we come in, we come back to the whole seder, as you said, the drumming and
Mm-hmm.
the magical aspects of it, because it's also like, because nowadays people tend to think, I have nothing against bands such as Heilung, for
Mm-hmm.
example. I think it's pretty cool. But people tend to think that the drumming and all shamanic stuff is Nordic,
Mm-hmm.
which to me is like, uh, uh, because when you start like digging deeper into this stuff, what does shamanism mean? Because today I think personally that or what I see, people use it as a like a counter strike against Christianity, like, oh, shamanism,
Mm-hmm.
basically, like this is that it's some kind of like natural way, like the heathen way, which I don't know, man. So speaking about what is Seder, what is this kind of what is this practice and what does it mean? Some people say, you travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what do you do when you travel? And it's yeah, it's a pretty big subject, but I believe that when you now we get into a bit deeper level here.
Amazing. I
But,
love this.
yeah. So when let's say traveling, what does that mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
in some traditions, they mean that um you are traveling to gain something, right?
Mm-hmm.
To gain something, to gain wisdom, to gain knowledge, always to gain something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like speaking and I guess you could say twisting.
Okay.
Um, and that so I think like we have this, should we call it, um glorified picture of the Seder, and it's very connected with Odin,
Hmm.
this whole thing. Actually, like especially speaking about Yggdrasil,
Hmm.
and the sacrifice, hanging in the world tree, giving himself to himself. I think that that's pretty horrible. Yeah, like his name, pretty horrible. It's a pretty horrible god, and people are. It seems like people, are pretty unaware of the origins of Odin and what he really meant during the Viking Age.
Hmm.
Um, so he was not a god among the common people. He was a god among the aristocracy.
And
Um,
also
and
coincidentally among the poets who were writing the stuff, right? So you have this
yeah,
really interesting dynamic where the poets who are writing everything are, of course, saying that the god of poetry is the most important of all. There's that
yeah,
whole dynamic there, right? Of course, the poets are going to glorify the person associated with poets. That's just
yeah.
makes that's human nature.
Yeah, exactly. And I also personally I think that it's uh absolutely the majority of the skulls,
Mm-hmm.
like standing in these great halls, and speaking again about the aristocracy. But and so an interesting, should I say, like connection
Mm-hmm.
between the Seder and the cult of Odin, we could say, right? Is that the earls, the
Mm-hmm.
kings, we can read about in some sources they had their wives that were known for, what is it called? Like mocking them to do things like
Mm-hmm.
pretty crazy stuff. And I think it's also mentioned somewhere that it's like they had this, um like they were doing forms of magic,
Mm-hmm.
practicing magic, and now we have found these graves, like this, um aristocratic graves with the staffs and the stuff. So I think the whole, but this is just me, like my
Mm-hmm.
personal view of it. I think that the sources we can read about, these völvor, right? The
Mm-hmm.
series, like walking around in the countryside, and going to villages and predicting the future and stuff. I think that's a quite medieval thing. I don't think it was like that during the Viking Age. I think it was that it really belonged to the upper class, the
Mm-hmm.
cult of Odin. And I know there are some scholars that have suggested this, but still, it's not. People don't, you could just open up Facebook and there's going to be a lot of Odin, shamanism, Odin, Sade, everything. So yeah, I don't know where we started, but about Larod, yeah. I think Larod is a more fitting name,
Mm-hmm.
for the world tree,
No,
basically.
I completely agree. And I just want to take a pause right here to say how much I appreciate, again, you openly talking about this sort of stuff, because I'm assuming that you're assuming that I'm in agreement with you when I say that I think it's important for people to talk about this stuff. This is the whole reason I have a podcast for this, is because it's important that people actually talk about this sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
not only the mythology part, which we sort of just went through, but just to backtrack a little bit, for anyone who might be rushing to comments, wanting to get mad at Nils here, for maybe saying something you disagree with. A, disagreement is important and healthy, but B, when something you said that I really have not covered here on the channel enough, um, is the fact that a lot of the drumming that you hear in new Nordic music really comes from the world music genre. This was covered in Matthias Nordvig and Ross Hagen's new book, The Ancestral North. They sort of had a whole chapter dedicated to the fact that a lot of the drumming that we hear in this style of music comes from like the West African drumming tradition that sort of like went through Europe, with
Mm,
people going to fairs and world music expositions and stuff like that.
mm,
So that's a whole different can of worms. But when you, yeah, so like when you say something like, the drumming isn't exactly Nordic, it's like, that's, you're right in a lot of ways. Does it mean that the Nordics don't have drumming? No, but a lot of the ways that we are listening to drumming nowadays does come from Latin and African music traditions, just because that's the way that we hear most of it. But
Mm.
I think like to tie about, because we could be here for hours talking about this specific background and mythology and all of that. I just want to
Yeah.
say, like, I do really appreciate, Nils, the fact that you just took the time to sort of like speak your mind on things where it seems like the consensus on Facebook goes against you, right? So I do really appreciate you sharing that, because to me the most important thing is talking about it and having these different, you know, views and opinions, because you said a lot of things there that scholars already talk about in books and in publications and stuff like that, but hasn't really made its way to like public forums yet.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway is just the fact that we do not know everything. There's very
Yes.
little that we have certain answers on.
Yes.
But that scares us. That we want to know the answer to things like Seder. We want to know
Yeah.
the answer to things like shamanism,
Yeah.
right? But the truth is, and I really wish that I just had this as an auto response on so many of the things that I post. Just we don't know. We do not know for certain. We're all just kids on the playmat playing with blocks, trying to make sense of all of these things.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you again taking the time to say things that might have people strongly disagreeing with you, but for the best. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think it's important, and I'm really um I was about to say looking forward to it. No, that's the wrong word. I'm prepared for all these things, like it already started with Lärod. Now it's Seden, because I think it's um the I've been now from like, yeah, the second album. I've been putting a lot of effort into the lyrics.
Mhm.
So when people ask me or about certain things and stuff, I gladly answer, because I think it's, yeah, like we said, to be able to develop, to grow, because in according to me, that's why we're here,
Mhm.
to grow. And I'm prepared for, the future, because there will be quite a lot of songs that will approach, this subject, or these subjects. Yeah.
Beautifully put. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Um, yeah, because it's important to say, because if we aren't saying things that ruffle feathers, are we really saying anything meaningful? And that's something that I've always believed in. If everyone's
Yeah.
just agreeing all the time, I don't think we're doing anything productive. Because
Exactly.
I had a very boring conversation with someone actually in the Midgardsblot group, where while everyone was like super stoked on Amon Amarth, they were like, "Oh, I can't stand the fucking horned helmet," and I'm like, a, that is such a boring conversation to have. Like, if you don't like Amon Amarth, then don't listen. But to say that like, oh, it's awful the way that they spread the horned helmet, I'm like, it's not that easy. And also, who gives a shit? But like, what you were bringing up is this very important topic, right? Of like
Yeah.
the people who want everything to be always historically accurate as far as we
Yeah.
know. And it's just
Yeah.
like, is that meaningful? Does that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I could
Exactly.
go on.
And yeah, but exactly. I talked to a friend about this some weeks ago, and it was regarding Amon Amarth, which,
Mhm,
we all love. No, but I really love Amon Amarth, and
mhm,
when we're talking about the lyrics, because there's a lot of, Odin, a lot of Valhalla,
mhm.
and as you said, like horn helmets and stuff. But it's death metal. It's it's and the music is great.
Yeah.
Um, so you shouldn't take it too seriously, I think,
Mhm.
when it comes to these things. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. So you already sort of teased what's next. but there were like maybe one or two more questions I had for you. Maybe one if we go on a tangent again, which I love, by the way. Um, I always love asking artists what their favorite songs are off of an album, or maybe if you can't choose a favorite, are there
Mm.
any of them that stuck with you as especially important, or for whatever reason you remember them more fondly than others, if that question makes any sense? Like looking back on the
Yeah,
album, are there any that
that's
have stuck with you?
um let me put it like this. It varies.
Yep.
Actually, because the thing is, in the beginning, as soon as I finished the demos, like
Mm-hmm.
mixing and stuff, put in my ear my headphones, and then doing the dishes, right, and listening to the songs constantly for maybe 1 week, like repeatedly, and I felt like, okay, but this is good, and then new ideas form, and then I do that, so it's like every time I finished a song, I was like, okay, this one is the best one. This one is the best one. And then eventually, when everything is finished, it depends. Like right now, I would say Tidens källa by the Well of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because it turned out to be pretty interesting, the whole the song. But I don't know. I don't know, man. It's or maybe that one or Mjölner, I would say.
That's a very good one. That was my favorite of all the singles
Oh, really?
when it came out. But same to you. Every time I listen to it, there are just different songs that jump out at me. But I have to say, like, just every time, the title track Seden blows me away every time, especially knowing that you're not that like you yourself think that like I'm not a singer. I posted to Instagram and to Facebook, with that clip of you playing Satan. That's terrifying to do, even as a trained singer. So, but hearing that, even if like you don't, you are like, oh, self-taught, not mostly a singer, you kill it, dude. It's very good. It's
Thank you.
such a
Thank you.
one of the best album openers that I can remember in recent years, because it just pulls me into that cinematic world that you talk about. And by the end of it, I'm like, I don't want to leave yet. I don't want to leave this world yet. But good thing I've got another hour of music to listen to.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's pretty frightening, and that's what I
Yeah,
told the
it's
guy.
terrifying.
Um, yeah, no, the gig before Midgardsblot,
Mhm.
I we had quite a lot of songs. I think we did approximately 1 hour or more.
Mhm.
Uh, by the time of Midgardsblot, we were like, oh, okay, shit, we have to remove some songs. And I was like, Seden, instantly, because it's yeah, that's how frightening that is.
Well, man,
So
you took the chance and you killed it.
yeah,
Yep.
but the others were like, no, sorry, you don't have the a say in this.
You
It's
have
gonna.
no power here.
So no, but it's yeah, and also the new thing is the in-ears, like with the metronome
Mhm.
in fifths. It's like, no, no. So, but yeah, it's yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, so then I think the last thing then that I want to ask about the album, especially now knowing sort of your origins of like the walk through the woods. Now I'm picturing the album cover again, and it's got like all that extra context to it, where now I can't not think of just like 8-year-old Nils walking through the woods in one of those hoods. Like,
Yeah,
like you and your friends are those are the wizards from those memes that are going around of just like the friends sitting there communicating, right?
yeah.
But I guess the last question I want to ask is like, do you, looking back, do you think that you have captured the feeling of Satan the way that you wanted to, or that's a difficult question to answer, but I think there might be maybe a worthwhile comment or discussion to have from it, is sort of like, what did you do right about it, or what would you maybe want to do differently in the future? anything like that?
That's a really good question. As we spoke about before, it's it's too big to put everything in on an album. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied. Now when I look back to the on the lyrics and stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, that maybe I could have changed there and stuff.
That never ends. That
Yeah, it
never ends.
never ends. But yeah, it's I think so. I covered it pretty good personally.
Yep.
Like the whole message kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Because for me, Seden or Seden is about uh, growing,
Mm-hmm.
constantly growing, and being extremely open-minded. Because it was the way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like something that um what is it called, influences everything, like from actions to thoughts to yeah, but with this album, I'm been focusing more, yeah, like we spoke about before, with the whole like interplay between everything, and also like some reflections. The thing is, I mentioned before with the first album being like chaotic and angry and stuff. The thing is, I'm gonna put it like this. Um, I would say that today the chaos is tamed. Um, so the thing is, it's still there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
tamed. Because the thing is, the more you learn and the more you read about history and religion, the more that grows as well. That
Mm-hmm.
that chaotic force, because you realize, okay, shit. Um, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I really, the thing is, I don't want to be too forward with things. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like Mjolnir, if you read the text, it's about shift of religion in Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to convey it in a Norse perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Again, everything like the the source of fertility,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole interplay to maintain the order and balance in the world, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And when that got removed, like that, you understand that kind of thinking about, if we compare not too much, but a little, like the whole polytheistic mindset with a monotheistic mindset,
Mm-hmm.
where in the Nordic, we have this, yeah, once again, the ritual interplay to be able to maintain order and balance, like to be able to maintain fertility, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to maintain life and growth, and all of a sudden it was forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the temple is a wrong term actually, but you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
were destroyed, and it and the thing is, I'm also adding some historical things in there as well, like from like the top upper class spreading it down, like and stuff like that, and some things are um played towards, like no, sorry, um about the whole thing with the cult of Odin as well, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
really magic. It's um a little mashup. But I thought that I needed to have that song on the album, because I think it's really like fundamental for the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
And especially if you're talking about like the one of the main threads of the album is growth and development, but even just change, even if it's not positive, right? I think Mjolnir, that follows the theme of the album quite well, because that's a whole
Mm.
story of change, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great track, man. I mean, all of them, like Tears
Mhm.
Otterkomst, if I'm remembering that correctly, different
Yes,
language.
right, right.
That I love the breaks in that. Like again, like what I, if I can just say one last thing about the album is, this whole genre runs the risk of becoming flat a very flat experience. And even though, yeah, I can see where maybe that might have come up in your last album, I think you might being more critical of it than it really was. Because there are way less dynamic albums than that, right? And so if anyone's listening to this sort of like thinking, what's a reason to listen to the album, is the fact that it is an hour long, but it's an hour long of a lot of variety. Um, and sort of, I think that lends itself very well to the whole idea you have of change and growth and development. You go on this journey through all of these different types of songs, and you get all these different sections and all these, very, very dynamic. And so that, I think there's a lot of value in that, because especially in this genre, which can lack dynamics a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so I guess, man, before I let you go, do you want to tease anything? What's coming next, or you got that locked under the hatch?
Um, what's up next? I haven't really figured out yet.
Okay.
No,
You're
no. The thing
go
is, I
go.
have like from I have titles and stuff.
Mhm,
And I want to, because last time I was teasing a bit about this trilogy, right?
mhm.
Uh, and then I figured out, no, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. But it's like it will be a trilogy, but not officially,
Yeah.
right?
So it's not going to be Seden 2,
No,
right?
no. It's another part where I find um like for me personally, what I find about the whole Norse culture
Mhm.
and Seden, for me it's divided into things. So it will be about that. So it will also have a theme, and the third will also have a theme, but they will all be connected and they're all intertwined with each other. But I don't know. What the we actually, or I actually did a song together with. Do you know In Flames?
Yeah. Mhm.
So the ex guitar player Niklas Engelin,
Okay.
uh, who's now in Halo Effect.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we teamed up a little. So he had made a song. And the thing is, so he's a good friend with Oscar, the guy that mixes and produces,
Mhm.
mix and masters. So he heard the Grimfrost Heard song
Yeah.
uh, with Johan, and he was like, "What is this?" So so he gave me a call, and he said that he's gonna do a solo album,
Mhm.
and he wanted to do a song with me and Johan.
Mhm.
So that song we've been working on. So I have no idea when it comes out, and the thing is, I don't think it will be connected with Hindarfjäll. I think it
Yep.
will be in, yeah. But so that would be, I don't know, within. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to say too much
No,
because
yeah, you're good, man. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. No, but
yeah.
that sounds awesome. Like that sounds dope. Like
It
I've
turned
always been
out
thinking Hindarfjell has just been missing just like a ripping fucking guitar solo, you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so but it turned out pretty I've never heard anything like it because it's like you have like the typical Gothenburg metal sound.
Hmm.
You know. The thing is I can't say I've never been, strangely enough, because I'm from Gothenburg,
Hmm.
but I've never been a fan of that sound. Of course
Yeah,
it's
yep.
nice.
Hmm.
It's typical, but I've never no. And so we have that, it sounds like Dark Tranquility, In Flames, Halo Effect. And then we have the Ammon sound
Hmm.
with that, with Hinderfell. So it's like it's pretty, particular. But yeah, I cannot wait to hear it like finished, like the finished production. It's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, before I mean, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I'm just gonna wrap up here and just say how much I appreciate you coming back on to not only talk about music, but again to delve more deeply into those mythological and also just cultural questions. Because that is a huge part of what this podcast is here for. It's not just music; it's also the world around music. And so I really do appreciate you taking the time to go down that rabbit hole with me, because that's a rabbit hole I wish I could go down a lot more often. And maybe I should make more of a point to for future guests. So yeah, Nils, it's just been great having you back on to talk about the music. Love the new album. I love seeing just like very straightforward growth, like from album to album. It's great to see, especially in a genre where a lot of people think like, oh, it's already peaked, or oh, it's a trend or whatever. It's like, no, it's gonna be here for a bit. And the longer we see bands just like continue to grow, as you have from album to album, it's very inspiring, and it gives us like a lot of optimism about the future of the genre.
Thank you so much, man. I also
Oh
have to
yeah, yeah.
mention that I was listening to your album.
Which one?
The guy with the band
Oh,
the
Yeah, so the was so okay. So Nils is listening to Scuzzlebutt. This is awesome.
no, real man. The thing is, I think 2019, I started listening a lot to. No, I don't want to, um, you know, say something stupid, but country music, like
Okay.
dark country music.
Yep.
I love. So I started listening a lot to, believe it or not, but Chris Stapleton, 2019. And I was like,
I
this,
He's great. Yep.
yeah, it's amazing. And so it's always been like, not country music per se, but
Hmm.
it's something that I really appreciate. So
Hmm.
I listened to your album and I was like, this I'm gonna play next summer when we're sitting, in the forest. We have this whole view over Gothenburg, grabbing some beers. Then I'm gonna put on that album because it was really really nice. And the thing is, you can't hear the banjo enough. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Thank you,
I
man.
really liked it.
I It's so funny. You've turned this around on me.
Yeah, but I had to
But no,
because,
I really appreciate that. Because especially with that last album I did, and you and I relate, where sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, could have done that better. Could have done that better. But what is important is that we are always more critical of ourselves, right?
yeah,
And so I really appreciate that, man. And actually, speaking of which, a new banjo just came today. It was the one that Don Shaw actually brought to Midgardsblot, and he had this banjo in his tent of instruments that he
Oh,
brought
really?
there for me to play, to tell him if he made it right, and he made it so right that I just bought it from him. And it's yeah, and it's this old style banjo, no frets, nylon strings, and it's just a whole different world. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, man, thank you for that. I'm glowing. I wasn't expecting for you to turn that around on me, but I appreciate it.
All right. Amazing. It's amazing.
All right, man. So, Nils, for anyone listening that for whatever reason hasn't followed you yet, or hasn't been keeping up with you, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or if they want to follow you?
Um, I would say Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, you name it, social medias and
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
streaming.
Not a lot of names with Hindarfjäll.
No, just Hindarfjäll, yeah, the name, yeah.
All right,
But
awesome. Well,
we
oh
don't,
yep.
we haven't fixed a website yet. It's I'm working on it, but those things takes time,
Oh yep.
so yeah.
I know how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So Nils, just stick around after I stop the recording. But until next time, thank you so much for coming back, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.